afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Kelly, for that rousing little introduction there. I'm Jeff Kelly, and I'm an attorney with Nelson Mullins as well as a fellow of the Duke Center on Law and Technology. So, want to welcome everyone to today's Legal Design Derby Solutions Showcase. I'm joined here with Kelly Raker, who is the coordinating of entrepreneurship programs and, frankly, just makes everything magical happen for the Duke Center on Law and Technology. So definitely want to recognize her for everything she's done both this week and last week at the Duke Law Tech Lab demo day, if you were able to catch that as well. And my co-host, April Dawson, is the Associate Dean for Technology and Law at NC Central. So really just wanted to give everyone a quick overview of what the Legal Design Derby is. And also just for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with the design thinking process, give you a little bit of a taste of what the students have gone through over the past 6 weeks, where they came together, formed teams, and worked to solve various access to justice solutions and problems. So if we can move forward and walk you through the steps of this process, it starts pretty simple with empathize, right? That's simple, where you have to actually get in the shoes of someone else's problem, view things through their lens, and basically understand the problem before you really come up and define it. So really the goal here is not to bring in my Jeff Kelly's viewpoints on a particular issue, but rather to actually sit down and do a lot of research and just really get a sense of the problem. And then once you've gone through that process, you actually move forward with defining it. So that would be where you're generating problem statements, where you now have gotten a little bit of context for a broader solution, and you can actually move that forward. The next step of that is to ideate. So now that you've kind of gotten a better understanding, we've synthesized all the information into a little bit of pipeline, you actually start to challenge your assumptions and really start to think creatively. This is where you start to really bring it together, and that's what feeds into the prototype. So today is that's the step we're really seeing for a lot of the teams here, is the prototype, which is kind of the initial starting point for the solution. And I mean, for a lot of teams, they've had some chances to iterate on it, so improve, get feedback, and to work through that. But really, this entire program is on that prototype into iteration step. And the goal of this is to provide law students with an opportunity to work with these problems, work through the solution, but also this is a starting point for what we hope to be a broader journey into a bigger problem and bigger solutions. So I'd like to hand it over to my colleague, April Dawson, to actually frame the problem that the students have been specifically working on.
Right. Thank you, Jeff. And again, as Jeff mentioned, I'm April Dawson. I'm the Associate Dean of Technology and Innovation and a professor of law at NCCU School of Law. And before I talk about the question, I just want to say a little bit about the Derby. And so last year was the first year that Duke hosted the Legal Design Derby, and there were 3 law school teams that participated. One of the teams was an NCCU law team, and I heard nothing but great things about it from the students who participated. So we were delighted when Jeff Ward and Kelly Raker reached out to us to say that they were doing it again. And we were even further delighted when they invited NCCU and the new Technology Law and Policy Center to co-sponsor with them. So we are just delighted to be a part of the team and work so closely with Jeff and Kelly and Jeff Kelly to launch this really important event and activity for our students. And this is so important because, as Jeff mentioned, it exposes the students to design thinking. It requires them to exercise their creative muscles, working in a team. They're addressing really crucial access to justice gap issues. They're thinking outside the box for solutions. And so we're just delighted that we had such a wonderful response from our students, from our volunteers, and so many people that help make this program come together. So as far as the question, the specific question, we wanted the students, in thinking about a solution or solutions to the access to justice crisis, to think about how the courts and lawyers and the whole legal system responded to COVID. So the specific question that they were asked was, How might we carry forward the legal system's resilience during the COVID-19 pandemic to maximize access to justice? And with that, I will turn it back over to Jeff.
Absolutely. So we were pretty excited this year because we actually had 6 teams from 4 of the law schools in North Carolina. So we had an incredible participation. And something that I thought was also very interesting is not only do we have law students from the traditional kind of 3-year program, but we also had a number of international LLMs. And so you can see a lot of the different perspectives that are getting brought into this, not just from a beginner's mindset of a law student, but also a number of students who are coming in who may have had experience in other jurisdictions, other legal systems, but not in ours. And so we're really excited to see what the different solutions that they come forward with, because that's a lot of different perspectives. And of course, to help them with that, we had a ton of volunteers from across the spectrum of, I mean, not only did we hear from legal aid directly on kind of their experience working through the pandemic, but we also had a lot of different technical experts from our neighbors down the street at LexisNexis. We had a lot of design advisors, not only from industry, but also from other law schools. We had data analytics companies as well. It's incredible, the community that is helping come in and help guide this process forward. So we really couldn't do this without not only the fantastic effort of the teams over the past week, but also the resources that were available to them.
And of course, we can't go without thanking our wonderful sponsors. So we have Lawyers Mutual and also the law firm of Nelson Mullins. We couldn't have done it without their support, their financial support, all of the support. We'd also like to, I think now we're gonna go ahead and welcome our judges. And what I'd like for each one of them to do is if they could go ahead and unmute their cameras and go ahead and turn their video camera on. And if you could say, just introduce yourself, give a couple of sentences about who you are and what you do.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Legal Design Derby for 2021. I'm Sonia Ebrin. I'm Chief Executive at Courtroom 5. We make an automated legal toolbox for pro se civil litigants handling the most complex claims. So just very happy to be here. I just mentioned, I've been in Durham for a long time. I was born here, and just really happy to participate and see the growth of the legal and legal tech community so far. So just very happy to participate, and congrats in advance to all the teams.
I guess I'm next. Can you guys hear me?
You sound great.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Keith Robinson. I'm a professor at the Wake Forest University School of Law. I write and research in the area of patent law and technology law and teach a number of IP and technology law courses. And I'm also an alum of Duke Law School. Happy to be here.
And I'm up next. I am Nora Rogers, and I am the administrator for the pro bono program at Nelson Mullins. And I have been doing this, I think, for 28 years now. So have seen how access to justice issues have changed, how technology has changed, and have lived through the pandemic and what it's been like for the courts and the lawyers, and how to change our gears and use technology through the pandemic. So I am super excited to be here to see what your creative minds have come up with. So thanks to everyone.
I'm Camille Stell, and I am the president of Lawyers Mutual Consulting and Services. And I help solo and small law firms to build more modern law practices. And I am very excited. I think that the enthusiasm of law students is wonderful to be around because it rubs off on all of us. So good luck to all of you today.
Thank you, everyone. So I don't want to get in the way of the excitement. So I think that let's just call up team number one. I'm going to invite you to turn on your cameras and we can get this show on the road.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fabrice Wilder Smiley.
I'm Brittany Burks.
I'm Hilary Tewaja.
Hi, I'm Lexis Real, and we are Team One. COVID-19 has had an impact on so many people, and our course did not go unscathed. A recent North Carolina legal needs assessment executive summary stated that help with traffic offenses can have a substantial impact on people's ability to be economically self-sufficient. COVID-19 impacted traffic court because hearings were postponed, leaving many without the ability to drive for much longer. In traffic court, the offenses are waivable or non-waivable. For waivable offenses, you do not have to show up to court. For non-waivable offenses, you do have to show up to court. For people who had to show up to court during the pandemic, courts were either shut down, causing dockets to be backed up. For waivable offenses, if people did not have to appear, the alternative is having an attorney appear for you or showing up in another county. The reason that a defendant would want to show up is because they get a better deal by not having to hire an attorney or to travel to another county. But what if you could virtually access any court in any county? What if traffic court was after work hours, so you didn't have to take off work? What if traffic court was near you? What if every county was accessible when you were available?
That is what Samantha Norman found. Samantha Norman is a 27-year-old single parent living in Durham, North Carolina. Samantha received a speeding ticket in New Hanover County while she was visiting someone in Wilmington, North Carolina. Samantha was unable to attend court and her license was suspended. She was unable to attend court because her daughter's daycare had a COVID outbreak and she had no other child care backup. Because Samantha received her ticket in New Hanover County, she would have to appear in New Hanover County. Samantha is a single parent and cannot afford to miss work right now. She was unable to pay her tickets, let alone the added fees. With everything going on, Samantha, like many others, is unsure what to do in the situation. As Samantha was waiting for her bus to go to work, she saw an advertisement at the bus stop for the Law on Wheels. Deciding this might be an opportunity to claim her life back, she called the number on the advertisement. Once the call began, an automated system gave Samantha 4 options.
If you want to hear more about what Law on Wheels does, press 1. If you would like to hear calendar dates, location, or a list of documents that will be needed during your service, press 2. If you would like to make an appointment, press 3. If you would like to speak with a direct representative, press 4.
Samantha presses 2 and hears that the truck will be along her local bus route, which is only 5 minutes away from her home. The next day, Samantha walked to Weaver Street Recreation Center with her citation in hand, ready to meet with Law on Wheels. There, a volunteer from North Carolina Central University School of Law explains to Samantha what confidentiality means and begins to ask Samantha what kind of service she needs, and an intake form is provided. After meeting with the volunteer, Samantha is given an appointment for her court hearing in the Law on Wheels courtroom. She's scheduled to have a hearing the following Tuesday. On Tuesday after work, Samantha returns to Law on Wheels, ready for court. The relevant New Hanover County staff is present via Zoom. Her pro bono attorney represents her well and is able to get her extra time on a payment plan to pay off her ticket. With Law on Wheels, Samantha is able to keep from accumulating late fees and/or permanent revocation of license. She is able to purchase a bus pass for the following week and make it to work. This allows Samantha to have the means to pay her rent, childcare, and eventually regain her license. Over 800,000 traffic infractions were given out in the year of the pandemic. How many Samanthas do you know? For everyone who has received a traffic ticket in another county, Law on Wheels is near. For those people who can't afford to take off work, Law on Wheels is near.
Although COVID is here, have no fear, Law on Wheels is always near. In the midst of a pandemic, people need stability now more than ever. Help us spread the word that Law on Wheels mobility is here. Let's get a prototype going and help the other Samanthas. The legal field has adapted and overcame so much, and COVID is no exception. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Team number one, thank you for that. That was wonderful. So now we're going to invite our judges to go ahead and turn their cameras back on, their mics back on, and then we've got about 5 minutes set aside for questions. And let's see, Sonia, why don't we start with you?
Fantastic presentation and concept. Thank you for that. Basic question then on the technology. You envision Samantha placing a phone call to the Law on Wheels, and does she gets some questions for herself. Do you need this? Do you need that? And she presses another number. Is there any way to electronically deliver the solutions she indicates she needs, or does she have to visit the law school to get those documents?
That's a great question. I believe that we will have some sort of automated system. The phone would be connected to the computer and it would transcribe what she said. And then we would have somebody review that and then give her a phone call, or whenever she decided to come in, we'll talk about that with her.
Fantastic, thank you.
All right, Keith, we'll have you go next.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed the presentation, Team One. I think this is an important problem to address. I think what you said is absolutely right about what a small infraction from a traffic ticket can lead to catastrophic circumstances. My question has to do with the interface, I think. So, you know, a lot of people don't know that they have a legal problem. They just know that they have a issue. And I wonder, can you talk a little bit more about the interface and what education the interface might do to make people understand whether or not their problem is actually a legal problem or a problem that doesn't require legal assistance?
So the idea would be that it will be a truck, and that the first half of the truck or so would be a law clinic. So if you do have, or if you think you have a legal problem, then that's where you would come and you can talk to a student, and they can go back and forth and have an exchange about whether or not you have an actual legal problem or whether or not you actually need an assistance. So then once we get that information, the student would determine if they do need assistance. And if you do, then you will get to the next level of us finding assistance for you. And then the other half of the truck would be the courtroom. So if you do need legal assistance and you do have to have a hearing, that's where you would go for that.
All right, Nora, you're up.
So I am just wondering, when you developed this, if you had reached out to other law schools, because I know of one other law school that does have kind of a Lawyers on Wheels $2 million van that goes out into the community. And so wondered if you happen to research about really the manpower that it would take to make this really a practical solution, because you're asking law students to give their time and pro bono lawyers to give their time, and then how often you would see this truck going out. Is it once a week, or how you would, have you thought about logistics?
That's a great question. So logistic wise, we thought about having the truck be in central locations such as voting precincts, churches, local churches, stationed in a community, a particular community that the potential client would know about via text message, via email. We'll update them like that. And then we also give out appointments, so like court hearing dates, so they'll know when the truck will be in their location in their community. And in addition to having law students and pro bono attorneys, we will also have people in the volunteer who help. For example, when it comes to voting time and members of churches, we'll have them and we'll get them trained as well to help, not with so much so the legal stuff, but what a central law student would do. We will put them up and show them how to do certain things that don't have to deal so much with confidentiality in order to have more manpower.
And Camille.
I really enjoyed your presentation. Thank you so much for that. And just to follow up on that last comment, as you have been working on this, have y'all been studying or reading about or hearing about some of the regulatory reforms that are going on across the country? Because one of the things you mentioned is bringing in the community. And so, you know, there are these ideas that people are talking about of limited licensed professionals, et cetera. And so did y'all have that in mind as you were talking, or are you really just using it more as community outreach to get boots on the ground helping with the work?
We had an idea of doing both. So we had thought that maybe there was a way for us to get limited professionals inside the trucks so that that could take some of the work off of the pro bono attorneys. And we would have more people who can do some limited law things that the volunteers wouldn't be able to.
Thank you.
I would like to add to that as well, that our idea of bringing in the community is to make trust with the people that need help, that if you bring in the community, people are feel more safe around people that they know. So while we would have these professionals, if we had the community volunteers, things move better by word of mouth. So if people in the community know, then they'll spread the word faster, and then we can allow more people to come in if they feel safe and comfortable speaking with us.
Love it.
All right. Thank you again, team number one. Wonderful job.
Fantastic presentation. Gonna invite team two to turn their cameras on, and thank you again, ladies.
All right. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Kayla Mitchell, and my teammate was on the call, but she is currently having a little bit of technical difficulties. The Zoom kicked her off. So she asked if we could just give her like 30 seconds to get back on the Zoom.
Hi, my name is Adora Oguno, and myself, along with my teammate Kayla Mitchell, will be presenting on behalf of Group 2 and our other team member, Asia Skyers, to introduce our concept we call the legal laboratory. So what exactly is the problem? Through our research, we learned that in the last year alone, 86% of legal issues reported by low-income Americans have received either inadequate or no legal help. This includes issues such as veterans benefits, disability access, and housing conditions. We chose this group as our target audience because, as we have seen, those who are most vulnerable to be taken advantage of are those without representation, and no one's personal or financial situation should deprive them of basic legal aid.
All right. So during the pandemic, while we did see a surge in use of technology, it also became apparent that technology is not and cannot always be a solution due to the lack of access some people have to internet, tech literacy, and transportation. So Team 2 believes that the legal laboratory is the answer to providing access for all. Our goal is to provide flexible alternatives to accessing justice. What makes this legal clinic unique is that no matter anyone's personal situation, mobility will never be an issue when it comes to accessing legal aid.
Our concept is a direct link to the goal of our lab, to provide access to legal representation to those directly within our community who do not have the financial means to attain representation. Clients can access the legal lab in 3 ways: physically coming in person to the lab, online video communications, or weekly community pop-up locations such as public libraries, churches, and community centers. Variety is what makes us unique. We provide options so that everyone can attain help. The clinic will be supervised by volunteer attorneys through partnerships with local legal aid programs, pro bono programs, and law firms. Like other clinics, this lab will give students hands-on experience working with real-world clients, but what's different is not only are students able to network with lawyers in numerous fields of law, but we hope that by providing students with the opportunity to physically go out into their communities to meet and serve people where they are, will demonstrate to the new generation of lawyers the importance of pro bono work and how, as lawyers, it is vital that we use our expertise to help as many people as possible.
Okay, sorry. All right, so because this is provided through a state institution, and the clinic will be a class that is offered, it will be, we plan to use state funding, grants, and public donations in order to fund the clinic. We also plan to market it to through government agencies such as social services, aging adult services, and consumer protection. We also plan to market it locally throughout the community. So at different churches, at libraries, at different schools, just so the community knows it's a service that is available to them. So as we stated before, at the beginning of our presentation, our goal is to provide access to legal services by being in the community. And we hope that we're able to convince you that the legal lab will attain this goal. And we also thank you for your time, and we're open to any questions.
All right, team 2, again, another wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. I invite the judges to go ahead and unmute themselves, turn on their camera. And why don't we start with Keith with this round?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, team 2. So my question, based on your presentation, what I understand is that your lab is going to be able to address a number of different legal issues. But in thinking about the prototyping step, I'd be interested to hear what problem you think you will start with. What area will you focus on first and then go expand from there?
So we wanted to start kind of small, so things that can maybe be handled in 1 to 2 visits. So maybe like starting with taxes, Social Security problems, wills, housing issues, looking at, solving small landlord-tenant issues. So we would start small in that area, and then hopefully we can, expand with that. But we do know that it's hard to, when you have different lawyers, it's hard to be able to service everybody when there's so many different types of law and so many different needs.
Thank you.
Camille, I'm sorry, Nora. Go in order.
Yeah, so I think I might have 2 questions. So I think the first, kind of piggybacking on the last one, was so you envision this just to be an advice clinic with a lawyer sitting next to a law student. Is that how you envision this?
No, it would be the same as a regular clinic. You're still actually working with the public and you're still giving them legal services. So it's the same as a regular clinic.
You're just giving them
Uh,
advice, so there won't be any legal representation after the clinic. So you see it as an advice clinic.
No, there could still be legal representation. The point of us partnering with these other pro bono and legal aid is so we can then point them in direction of people who do need to give them more help than what we can give them in the actual clinic.
And then you are envisioning this like a one rural area, like in North Carolina, like once a month? Is that what you're thinking?
No, this is going to be, we imagine this being a clinic that's going to be offered through the school. So I don't, like at law schools, you have a clinic, so you can take the clinic as an actual class. So it'll be offered during the spring and the fall semester. And so students can sign up to work the clinic.
And Camille.
How would this clinic be different from some of the other clinics that you already have at the law school?
So what makes this clinic unique is that it's mobile. So we plan on setting up at different places within the community, such as churches, libraries, partnering with high schools, so that if people can't access the clinic, if they can't come to the law school, or they can't access the Zoom to maybe Zoom in to meet with someone, if they live near one of the community centers, then they can just go in person to a church or just wherever that clinic is for that week, and just have access to the legal services that are available at that time.
So you're taking the clinic to them.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good job on your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Sonia.
Thanks for another good presentation here. I want to take this from the user's perspective, potential client's perspective. So they would see something about the legal laboratory at a church or voting precinct or somewhere, and then do they have to make an appointment? Like, what is the process for them to get some actual help, to get in front of a person who can help them? And then how, that's one question. And secondly, where do they go after that? Like, how do you anticipate getting them from step one to step two in their legal situation? Because oftentimes, you know, this is often a multi-step process. Where do you locate your service or the legal laboratory in the full, you know, panoply of their legal matter?
So everything does have to be done by appointment. We want to have a website, or you can either call in, because we do know that not everybody has internet access. So you can make an appointment either through calling in or through the website. Once you get that appointment and when you call in, you can tell them what your preference is. If you would like to Zoom, if you would like to come in person, or if you want to make a, you know, for that week, if you would like to go to one of the locations that's outside, you can make it that way. And then, so from there, all communication is going to kind of be through email. And then you would kind of get assigned the student that you're going to be working with. And from there, the student and the client have direct communication, and that would be their responsibility. And then it, of course, would be the student's responsibility to then contact with whoever their lawyer is, who is looking over them in that way.
And then the second part of that, again, where do you, and this is a very difficult question, I apologize, but I'm trying to just understand, where do you see generally your solution helping a person? At what point, right? Have they just been served with a complaint, or are they deeper in the legal matter? Just where do you see the legal laboratory offering the most assistance?
We see ourselves offering the most assistance in the beginning aspect. So for example, like if someone comes to us and they say, you know, I would like help drafting a will, we would like to provide as much help as we can. And then in the event, the student should be able to provide all of the legal services that that person needs. But in the event that the student can't, or there's just extra things that may just need to be worked out, we can then, you know, recommend them to somebody else so they can get the best legal services that that they deserve, that they need. So our initial idea is to just have them come from the beginning and then help them as much as we can through whatever it is that we're helping them with.
And I think it's important to note that really our idea is mainly surrounding around access and versatility. Like there were too many people, even during the pandemic, that couldn't get to places because of mobility issues, or maybe they're bedridden, they can't leave their house. So I think it's important to note that our main, aspect is really versatility and making sure that no matter where you are, what your situation is, you can still somehow be able to reach and get some type of representation, legal services, or for somebody to be able to point you into the right direction.
Good job. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you both for that. At this point, I'm going to hand the floor over to Team 3. If you want to turn on your cameras and share your screen.
Great. We would like to welcome you to the concept and tool of flowcharts. So basically, as you can see on the screen, the point is to feel like home. And we decided to return to the roots and begin touching the housing issue when it comes to just access. When it comes to the game plan of this presentation, you can easily wonder that we're going to touch the issue, the solution, and give you a concrete flowchart example in action. When it comes to the issue, I already mentioned that housing is a very big concern. Even like in North Carolina, 6 million, like in the area, 6 million people are behind their rent, and so they might have serious concerns. So the point is like how to confront these expensive fees, how to help people who have time constraints with remote jobs, multiple jobs, do what they have to do, understand the technical language, and of course, how to confront the fear factor that you feel when you are against one owner, who is usually the superior party of the case. So Arthur, my colleague, we're going to present you the solution to all of this.
So our solution, to give you a bit of information how we found this solution, we question ourselves, said, how did we learn the law? And one of the ways that we learned the law is through flowcharts and decision trees. So our goal is to use flowcharts and templates to enable claimants to enforce their rights regarding housing issues. So our solution is built upon 3 main pillars. The first one is about providing simplicity. Flowcharts provide organized information that is easy to read and to understand. It will allow us to explain the law and legal issues, and will focus on having a simple design with a great user experience using emoticons and icons to make sure that the information is accessible for everyone. The second pillar is about explaining the reasons and the remedies. People fear what they don't understand. People need to understand their problems and what remedies might be available. We'll provide them with trustworthy and updated information, and this will provide guidance through a very simplified process. Our third pillar is to provide streamlined information, a streamlined process, and one which is highly scalable. So we'll have a very user-friendly experience that can be accessed either through a paper format, an app, or through a web page. The prepared templates will also allow us to streamline the process, since templates can help us save a lot of time. And finally, what we think is really important is that it can be easily expanded to target a wider audience. So Antonia will give you a bit more flavor about the flowcharts.
Exactly. So if we take the diagram more practically, we are in the stage of first identifying the legal issues, like the real cases that of course derive from legal issues. And then we have several insights from different experts on the field, social workers, or even claimants. Then the stage of research continues. We conduct legal research to find the appropriate remedies, answers to all of these issues, and we keep updating this research in order to create a database with all the problems that already occurred or also potential problems. This keeps being updated. And based on this database, we create what Arthur mentioned, the flowcharts and the complementary templates. Based on those, we begin the communication stage. This is really important because it really targets different groups from the sense that we really want to reach them either online and offline based on their connection with technology and their needs. It might be students very into technology or groups who do not have access that easily. In the end, we monitor the results, we collect the feedback, and we are ready for the scaling of the product. And we can show you a more concrete example based on these steps.
So I'll give you an illustration. Right now, winter is coming. It's already very cold outside and tenants may have heating issues. Identification stage, then research phase. What can be done about heating? What remedies are available or rights of self-help? Stage 3 now, creation. Creating a decision tree for users, preparing templates with a letter for the landlord and another letter for the court. Then step 4, communication. Spreading the word, going to the local church service, talking to legal aid, going to the Duke Clinic, basically any place where the community is gathering. And finally, the monitoring process, collecting feedback, improving our solution, and scaling. So all in all, what we're offering is a small idea,
but with a large impact.
Thank you.
Thank you, Team 3, for another wonderful presentation. And so with this round of questions from our judges, we will start with Nora.
Okay, so from your presentation, you're going to have flow charts. So these flow charts are going to be for individual legal issues. Is that how you're doing this? Or this is your flow chart just for your identification? And you kept saying we. Who is the we? You keep saying we are going to identify and we are going to communicate. Is that the students that will be doing this on a particular issue?
Hi, my name is Miroslav. I'm going to try to take your questions. Our idea was basically to use the flowcharts to explain rather simplified the issue at hand and to provide a certain advice to the person. So it's going to be either internet-based or somewhat software-based concept where the person clicks through different questions when it comes to the housing issues, and then it gets an answer at the end with a particular letter, for example, a sample letter which this person could send to the landlord.
And so if I may answer the second part of the question about who the we is. So it is the students, but also we have, for instance, at Duke a great clinic, and they're really working very hard on housing issues at that moment, like while we're speaking. So they could also help us create those templates and flowcharts. And then the monitoring process is also part of the we, because as we get feedback from our users, they also help making the flowcharts better.
So I go to maybe a portal or a link that you're creating. I'm a tenant. I've got a hot water heater that's leaking and won't work, but my landlord says, well, too bad, I'm not going to fix it. So I would go to this web page and try to figure out my housing issue, put in what my housing issue is based on whatever flow chart you have, and then it will send me to a solution or a letter that I could then send to my landlord. Is that correct?
Yes, so we imagine a very simple to use and interactive website where basically the person is saying, it starts with something like, hello, what is your housing issue? And then you have 2 or 3 options like security deposit, or something got broken, or my landlord is and we're having a dispute, for example, about my rent. And the person would click on that, for example, something got broken, you said the shower. And then we're going to have a list like what got broken, like your sink is not working, or you don't have electricity, or I don't know, your lamp is broken, your window. And of course, there will be options. And if we don't have all the options, there will be another. And then the person will describe it, of course. That's also going to be kind of our feedback to know like what are the things that get broken most. And the moment when this person clicks on that, we're going to present them like, according to the law, you can request, for example, your landlord, you have to give him a notice. Click here to download the notice. And they're going to download the notice. Now send it to your landlord, and in brackets, best would be via email so that you have some kind of approved it, the landlord received it. And the third part will be, and by the way, you can request that if he doesn't repair it within reasonable time, you can request that you pay less of a rent, for example, 10% or 15%, depends on what was broken. And in that way, the person knows, okay, I have to send my notice. If I don't get it repaired, I'm going to receive some, I'm gonna pay less rent. And I can also request that I make the repair by myself or by some technician. And then I request the landlord to pay for it.
All right, Camille.
So this is a self-help option. It appears where they get a lot of guidance from your flowcharts that they otherwise wouldn't have had. And then they go and try to solve the problem themselves. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And of course, we'll have an option where, for example, we have a, sorry, I've tried already this and my landlord is being stubborn, not paying. What should I do now? And we can provide also some initial guidance on, for example, either, for example, a legal service or legal aid, for example, in the area, some NGO which is working with Duke or UNC or with some other university. And of course, if that's not possible, because there are always restrictions to those things, we're gonna give like a basic intro to how to litigate in terms of like a very simplified option. Like these are the 3 things or 5 things that you have to do.
Okay. Thanks. Good job. Good presentation.
Sonia.
So just a point of clarification for me, the flowchart sort of diagram that you displayed, is that geared to the end user, the person with the legal problem, or to a legal services organization or set of law students that are going to deliver or create an end user solution from the flowchart? That's the point of confusion for me.
So it depends. So there will be a backbone. Basically, the backside is going to be running through a flat flowchart, and the app is going to provide the answer. And our solution right now is for consumer only. So the consumer receives a very easy to understand explanation of what their rights and the possibilities are, without all the legal background that is necessary to comprehend the whole thing. At the same time, another option is to have I'm a professional login kind of, and I'm trying to figure out what the rights of a client would be. And that would, of course, be able to provide a more in-depth, researched and kind of like up-to-date legal standing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Keith, to jump in line here, just to keep moving. We're going to invite team number 4 up to turn their cameras on. So thank you again, team 3.
Hello and good afternoon. I'm Erin Jones, representing Team 4. My teammates are here with me today, Kathia Bone-Rostro and Kiana Lewis, representing Campbell Law School and Elon University School of Law. Today, you've heard many good ideas about projects that could improve legal access, but with COVID and beyond, why do we need to improve legal access? In North Carolina and across the United States, we have impoverished communities, primarily of color, that struggle to navigate the legal system. These struggles manifest themselves in different ways, but are exacerbated by a number of factors. Factors such as 1, a lack of internet and computer access. 2, struggles to receive legal aid, especially early on in cases that could help them be more easily resolved. 3, difficulties with mobility to reach any legal services. And 4, trouble finding affordable legal services. These struggles result in a system that seems to be stacked against these communities, resulting in higher incarceration rates, perpetuating inequality, fees and fines that result in financial insecurity that only builds upon itself and creates a distrust in the legal system overall.
According to the ABA, 80% of civil legal needs go unmet. This is primarily among low and middle income communities. Legal indigent outreach strives to meet these needs and focuses on tailoring our program to this demographic. Excuse me, sorry. This map represents data from the American Community Survey, which collects data about the American public. The lighter counties represent households with lower computer access, while the darker counties represent households with greater computer access. As you can see, the urban and rural divide in regards to computer access is great, which highlights the need to bridge this gap using this program.
So why are these areas so essential to discuss? Addressing these areas of the law helps underprivileged communities in a multitude of ways. Research has shown an increase in evictions, an increase in predatory lending, foreclosure, and gentrification. Communities of color also need information about wills. Many people in lower income communities pass without a will, leaving their families to navigate an unfamiliar legal system in addition to dealing with the passing of their loved one. Since COVID-19 began, there has also been an uptick in domestic violence as victims have been in close quarters for longer periods of time with their abusers. And the housing crisis has exacerbated this issue. Many communities of color also struggle with access to better opportunities due to past civil and criminal offenses. Expunctions can alleviate this burden to allow for people to apply for better access to housing and jobs.
This is the step-by-step process that the legal indigent outreach would follow. In step 1, we would select community organizations such as churches, schools, and nonprofit organizations. In step 2, we would focus on posting bulletins at these locations with our hotline number. And then we would partner with community leaders in these organizations, which can also help develop trust and help us eliminate the stigma associated with looking for legal aid. Then in step 3, we would contact and assess the case. We would actually receive calls to our hotline number and using the voicemail service, upload a translated transcript. Here, we would also address confidentiality concerns. Then the program would use predictive analytics to issue spot and assess the case. Step 4 is the matching stage. After the analytics program evaluates the case would be sent via email to the server where attorneys would view it. The program would give a basic assessment of the case and the amount of time estimated to resolve it. Step 5 would entail beginning to work on the case. So contacting the client, filing paperwork, getting evidence. And at the conclusion, data would be collected to improve the accuracy and ease of the program.
We hope to centralize our efforts and data collection by putting it all on an app. We want our research to be accessible on Google Play, the App Store, and the web. Today, all smartphones have the capacity to send a text to an email. All you have to do is put an email address in the number line. By offering a program that would allow this to be done with voicemail, then we're bringing the world a little closer together in both consideration and access.
So how would we pay for this? Who will work this? Ideally, we would be getting funding for this project from grants, donations, and volunteer services. But realistically, this may very well be a $20,000 startup program to begin and lead to lower yearly costs after that. while the price tag may be relatively high, it would still be cheaper than all of the services that communities we aim to reach would have to pay for these services in the end, and would be an incredible aid not only to the people of North Carolina, but across the United States. As far as work, we hope that the ease of access provided by LEO, Legal Indigent Outreach, will encourage all bar members to fulfill their suggested pro bono hours, or even that this program would encourage the ABA to make pro bono hours required, which would further encourage the use of this program for ease of access. Thank you very much for listening to us today.
Thank you, team number 4, for yet another wonderful presentation. And this round, since Keith didn't get a chance to ask a question the last round, Keith, we'll start with you.
Okay, great. Team 4, this is really interesting. My question has to do with the predictive analytics component. Is that something you envision that needs, I mean, how is that going to work? Is that something you have to develop? Is there an off-the-shelf solution out there? Can you talk a little bit more about that, please?
Yes, so the predictive analytics software would essentially be built into the application that we discussed. This application would, of course, need to be developed, and this would incorporate machine learning. So we would need to develop the application to code for this type of learning, and essentially, through the course of time, become better at predicting how long cases are going to take, what types of issues are being addressed in the transcribed version of the client's case, and be able to better match with attorneys that would be able to help. So that's something that would have to be developed internally.
All right, Camille.
Have you thought about how y'all would do that sort of development? Do you have partner ideas already in mind, or is that skill set something that you think you would develop?
It's definitely a skill set we would think we would develop in our conversations. We've really brought up the idea. We haven't gone as far as to think about partnerships at this time.
Good job on your presentation.
Sonia?
I have a sense it feels like a lawyer referral service for low-income people. And I'm just curious about your understanding of the problem. People have a legal issue, and they would generally call the legal aid organization in the area, or the clerk of court, and be referred to them. Is your app then designed to get them to the right legal services organization, or would the output, would the matching be for any pro bono service, potential pro bono service in the area that could handle their matter?
So to talk about your question, we approach this with the idea of people are supposed to do their pro bono hours, but they often don't. So not only do these communities need legal help, but also we have a lot of lawyers who haven't done their pro bono work. So how do we encourage this work to be done while also making it an ease of access for low-income people of color typically? And so we thought that what would happen is lawyers in an area could sign up for Leo, the server, and then they would see a list of these cases that need help. And then they could say, this program suggests that this case will take up so much time, and then do it. And then the ease of access would encourage the pro bono hours. This is different from a legal aid or a clinic, because we have worked in legal clinics at our law schools, and people have often to wait months in order to be seen by a lawyer or a law student. It has to do with time, it has to do with effort, who's taking the course at the time. But if these cases are made available to the lawyers as they're needed, then the lawyers could say, well, I haven't done my pro bono hours yet. Where are they? And it's like, oh, this case is right here. That's only gonna take up 2 hours of my time. Done, mark it off. So that answers your question, ma'am.
I would like to also add, our goal was to streamline the process. I know in my experience, from the client perspective, a lot of lower income communities didn't know to go to the law firm or to go to legal aid. So we spent a lot of time rerouting them to legal aid. and our service will kind of take that middle step out. Thank you.
Yeah, and
And
I
so-
also want, oh, I'm sorry.
I have a question too, yeah.
Okay.
So I have a real quick question because I deal with volunteer lawyers all the time and know the issue with them not participating in pro bono. And so there are other programs like this across the country where lawyers can go online and find these cases listed and they can sign up and they can see this kind of information. But the one thing that everybody's talking about these days that really doesn't exist, and what's interesting with your project, is the app. So the app on the phone to actually find the client, but you might want to consider, if lawyers sign up, somehow notifying them on their phone that there is a case for them that they might want to review. Because in the busy world of lawyering, nobody is going to that webpage to find pro bono when they get up in the morning. Some do, but most don't. So you might want to consider somehow also creating some sort of app for lawyers to have on their phone who can be notified if a housing case comes up because that's what they've signed up for in their county. So I just throw that out there as just an extra effort you might want to consider with the lawyers.
Thank you for that advice. I think that that's really helpful. And this could be sort of in the form of a push notification or even an email potentially with the list of cases, which would be amenable with our app because we have that transcription sort of aspect to it.
You're on the
Okay.
right track.
Well, thank you, team number 4, and thank you, judges. And I will turn it over to Jeff.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Great presentation, y'all. So team number 5, you'd like to turn on your cameras and share screen.
One second, you all. Let me get this operating. Are we able to see the presentation?
Yes, we are. Looks great.
All right.
Well, actually, we're looking at presenter mode.
Okay. I got to play with it a little bit. I had it down. Sorry about this. Let me get it together. Are we able to see?
Perfect.
All right. Sorry about that. Hello, everyone. We are Team 5. Our team consists of Cameron Benton, Delaney Davis, and myself, Comfort Johnson. So the title of the presentation is Installing the Well, BAR licensure waivers and how they could immediately aid with COVID relief. So the title Installing the Well is a play on words, don't reinvent the wheel. And that's basically the system that we're trying to implement adds to the system that's already in place. So it'll be an enhancement. All right.
So the great car manufacturer Henry Ford has a really famous quote. I'm sure most of y'all have seen it. It says, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said they wanted faster horses. And so this quote is a great quote. I think what he was getting at makes sense in most business applications. But for design thinking, I mean, that's supposed to be the point. The point is supposed to be made, a solution is supposed to be made with an end user in mind. And when you talk to a lot of prospective attorneys, current attorneys, young attorneys, one of the things that they wish that was not in place were some of the limits in terms of their freedom of movement between states and abilities to practice between states. So our solution overview is to eliminate the requirement of having to take a bar exam in a new prospective state, as long as that attorney is within good standing in their home state. And really the biggest advantage, at least in terms of specifically COVID, would be to allow true virtual law practice. Because as y'all know, even if you have a virtual office, you still have to abide by those state licensure requirements. And so there are a lot of ways that we could still help structure it, but one of those ways to kind of be to pattern it after how the medical profession did during the height of COVID, and create CLEs, just some brief courses to kind of help usher people in. And so, yeah, just continuing on with that, I'm sure you all remember at the height, there were dozens of states either completely froze or drastically relieved different licensure requirements. And then I think a really important thing, so the state of North Carolina has essentially done this before. So this is just one example. In 2018, they allowed out-of-state attorneys to service hurricane victims, and they didn't have to deal with any reciprocity agreements, any of the extra stuff. As long as they were fine in their state, they were able to come in and assist people. And you know, that's a dire situation. And as we know, COVID was and continues to be a dire situation. And that's something that could immediately help now.
And as we all know or will learn, UPL is the unauthorized practice of law, and lawyers can run into this issue, unfortunately, if they practice outside a jurisdiction in which they're licensed. And we recognize that with our prototype and the emphasis on eliminating the licensing requirement across state lines, the idea of obtaining liability insurance in a state where you're not licensed can be seen as a hurdle. We definitely recognize that. And so the best course of action we think would be to combine an attorney's existing insurance coverage with a single lawyer's professional liability insurance carrier and insurance agency. However, in moving to the next slide, there are similar pre-existing examples, like we touched on earlier, such as telehealth. There are real-world examples of lawyers practicing and counseling clients in a state which they are not licensed or did not take the bar, and the extension of this liability insurance didn't really pose a problem. And we have these 4 examples here on the screen. Practicing federal law, the uniform bar exam, the idea of reciprocation, which Mr. Benton spoke about earlier, and in-house counsel. And back to that true virtual practice that we mentioned, we are all acclimated, probably a bit more than we'd like to be, to our new normal of this virtual environment. And when it comes to legal services, a virtual practice would vastly open the volume of work attorneys could engage in, as well as needed legal services for clients. And all of these examples, along with that idea of the true virtual practice, really give way to our prototype in lifting that license requirement. And it would really only maximize access to justice, especially in times of a societal health crisis like the COVID-19 pandemic.
So this goes to show that amazingly, with all the examples that was just mentioned, nothing blown up yet. So we, can still add different ways to bring people access to justice. And so far it's been working and we're still standing. Thank you all for your time. If you guys have any questions.
Thank you, team number 5, for yet another wonderful presentation. And to start off our questions from our panel of judges will be Camille.
So thanks for a really good presentation, you guys. Do you anticipate that this waiver would only be during emergencies? Or do you think that this is an option moving forward to continue to allow access to justice?
Yes, ma'am. So, and Team 4 mentioned it. So, like, what are things that we could do to kind of prevent us from being in this situation again or in the long term? I think in that instance, it will be for it to be a consistent thing. But if it were to kind of play out in a real world application, I think it would probably need to be eased in the same way that emergency order was allowing the pro bono work. I think it would probably have to be eased in. So maybe if the governor declares a state of emergency in the entire state or in specific counties, maybe just kind of work it in like that. And I think something that I've kind of observed, I'm only a 2L, but I think attorneys are kind of hard-headed. And so we need like consistent examples before we are willing to really, I guess, invest in it. So I think that could kind of help ease it in.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Sonia.
It's a fantastic presentation, very novel. Love the colors, by the way, as well. I would just ask, the premise seems to be here that allowing lawyers to practice outside the jurisdiction they're licensed in would increase the supply of lawyers for people, and therefore increase access to justice. Have I got that right? And I would just ask have you thought about the fact that the real access to justice problem is not necessarily related to supply, but to cost, and whether there's some economics term. I'm not an economist, so forgive me here, but there's some economics term, something like elasticity, where the supply demand calculation doesn't work or it fails. And I'm just wondering how you would go about testing the assumptions you have around supply and demand of lawyers, given the realities on the ground about unaffordability of lawyers.
Yeah, well, that's definitely something that would be difficult to test. I think generally though, it could kind of allow attorneys the ability to decrease prices if they didn't have to have such an overhead, and they could still service members in their state and outside of their state. So perhaps kind of that ratio of overhead to, the expanded clientele base could help, I guess, kind of alleviate some of that pressure. But otherwise, you're right. The elasticity thing is definitely a thing. There's a saturation point in every market. And so you kind of won't know, I guess, unless and until it happens. But that's just kind of an idea.
Let me follow up on that very quickly. I know we're limited on time, and saturation is probably the economics term that I was thinking of. So thanks for that. I'm wondering if maybe that supply pressure then that your solution would create would prompt lawyers to look at alternative delivery systems like Unbundled and some of the other things that are out there. And if there are ways that you would maybe test those assumptions.
I think, sorry if I can cut in here. I think, and again, thank you for your question. I think if we're looking at this as a solution in an emergency or a pandemic environment, we have definitely seen instances where it seems like services that are being provided, people are a little bit more willing to either come down on cost or just a little bit more open to doing things that they wouldn't normally do in a situation that simply isn't normal and then that they're not used to. And if this is something to provide access to people who need it, I think it would prompt lawyers, just as Mr. Benton said, and like you mentioned, to kind of just cut that cost down or look at a different way to provide access so the people that need it are getting it. The most relevant idea that's popping up in my head is the moratorium, if I'm using that word correctly, on student loan payments during the pandemic, and how that didn't, we didn't need to pay those in this moment where, we're already going through so much. So I think it's just another thing that lawyers would have to think about and factor into consideration.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Excellent. Thank you all. Well, in the interest of time, we're going to go last but not least. Team number 6, please turn your cameras and share your screen.
Can everybody see my screen?
Looks great.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. We are LLM students at Duke Law School. I am Mashura from Uzbekistan. Miguel is from Philippines, and Robbie is from New Zealand. First of all, we thank you for organizing this event and giving us a chance to improve the access to justice during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now I give a turn to my colleague Miguel to present our prototype solution.
Thanks, Masha. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, thank you for allowing us to, for the opportunity to present our solution today. So providing access to justice to those who need it the most presents a gamut of issues. Lockdowns caused by the pandemic did not change the demand for legal advice or opinion. Legal aid providers had to rely solely upon the internet to provide reliable and quality information to people who could not afford these legal services. Unfortunately, those in need of it the most, the advice, who do not have access to the internet, made their search for the answers for even most simple legal problems a very anxious and cumbersome process. Lack of funding, lack of effective messaging, lack of clarity, intimidating esoterical legal explanations can be off-putting sometimes and leave the search for the searchers even more confused. So how might we carry forward the access to justice during the pandemic and beyond, given these hurdles? So our solution is really simple. We've identified some steps. First, we identify common hurdles for those who have no internet access or even like simple research technology like Google. Common hurdles such as, circumventing like a speeding ticket issue or a traffic or parking violation case. Second, we provide an intangible legal guide, maybe like a flow chart or a concept map of like a process to a common legal problem that is both inviting yet simplified, but also high quality. And third, we use NFTs or non-fungible tokens to ensure the funding and the creation, dissemination of the information. NFTs, as most of you probably know, are non-fungible tokens that are sold in auction as unique assets that are verified and stored in blockchain technology. They can include everything from any idea of expression like paintings, music, sporting events, but the big boom really is in the digital artworks, and this is where our solution slots in. So how does it work? We create an NFT exchange platform for artists and pro bono lawyers to collaborate and create information, legal information, into visual guides. Information meets art, so to speak, while retaining the core message of the legal guide. The artists produce an artistic iteration of the infographic chart or the concept map using legal design thinking to invite a genuine public interest in learning about the legal processes in a fun and artistic way. Then the NFT is created out of the collaborated work between the lawyer and the artist. The NFT will then be offered for sale, and the buyer in the auction will authorize the use of the work under fair use terms. Next, the proceeds from the sale will also be handled by an underlying smart contract, which will allocate the money taken from the sale. 1/3, which will go to the artist. Another third will go to the overhead costs for the platform to produce the physical embodiments of the guide. And the other third, the last third, will go to the lawyers, the legal service providers. So the physical embodiments of these guides will be strategically placed in common areas open to all for viewing and learning. Selection of issues will depend based on the need of each community, region, or area. They could be in paving stones, walls, notices, anywhere really. Can be provided in central rural areas like schools, courthouses, and bus stops. They will also be beautiful and provide a way for people to get answers to legal problems. Anyway, to summarize, we already know a lot of common legal problems are out there. Thousands of Facebook legal or issue-oriented seminars have identified these. And there must be a way to allow access to this information to both offline and online users. NFTs, we think and believe, provide a great way to have a sustainable process to have the public access to these guides. If NFT legal guides can be sold, you potentially get to solve legal issues, create something new and appreciable in value in return, providing exposure to local visual artists while promoting public awareness and access to justice in a sustainable and dynamic way. Thanks.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your listening and attention. So we are glad to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Team 6, for another wonderful presentation to round us out. And so the first person to ask a question on this last round from our judges will have Nora start us off.
Come on. Sorry about that. I'm trying to get unmuted. Wow, that's this is the first time I've ever seen anything like this, so it really captured my attention. And so on these visuals, it will just be a description of taking you through a legal issue, correct? Because I didn't spend a whole lot of time looking at I couldn't see your visual long enough. And then do you think you'll be able to give that much description on one page, or at the very end, are you going to say, this is where you need to go if you need assistance? I'm just trying to figure out how much you plan on putting on that one visual. But
that's a fantastic, yeah. Sorry, that's a very good question, Nora. Actually, that's the beauty about the collaboration between the artists and the lawyers, because we think that there are two messages trying to be conveyed here. One is the legal embodiment of like the solution to the answer, but also at the same time having something very inviting, you know, something vibrant, artistic, you know, something that you feel like you're entering an art gallery, like, okay, this is engaging, but I also want to find out what other information beyond the expression do I need to know. So it's really like an infinitesimal amount of possibilities, really. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does, because I'm afraid, I know where I am, I'm afraid a lot of people don't even know that legal services exist or where to call. So, and we all know, even in our natural disasters, that even though we think we're doing outreach, we still can't quite get to the people that need help. So I'm just kind of curious about this one.
Yeah, I wanted to add, Diogo, thank you for your great question. So yeah, so our focus was here, like for people like who even don't have access to the internet. And first of all, we wanted, like, as you mentioned, to increase the awareness. So if you need help, we are here, we're gonna help you. So there will be not only the flowchart or explanation, there will be the contact details as well. So like it's for information purposes. If the person needs further assistance, they're gonna call, and like there will be the further legal advice and you know, the assistance by lawyers and law students under supervision of lawyers.
All right, Keith, you're up next.
Yeah, so my question is, I think this is an interesting idea, but why create an NFT? Why not just mass produce a bunch of posters with this information and post them up? What is the NFT getting you?
Thanks for your question, Keith. Well, this is from the perspective from a third world country like the Philippines, where I come from. So when the government tries to disseminate like a campaign for posters, say for example, there's a lot of roadblocks and red tape when it comes to coming up with these funds, right? Although the intention of the government agency is there, and there's usually like maybe an allocated fund, it's not, I don't know, but the reality sometimes is it's just so hard to get those signatures on so that the funds are out. With this platform, you have all stakeholders interested, a non-government, I mean, you can have government in it too, I think. And I think we can elaborate on that later on. But if you have like a visual artist, a lawyer, collaborating towards creating an NFT, you have a market that can be sustainable in creating these posters without having to rely on like treasury funds or like checks being issued, you know, at this date. And yeah, I think it really throws in like so much fun to it. I mean, I've never seen like a concept where a profession like lawyers and law collaborate with artists in this way, and I think it's a fun way. It's a fun way to solve that problem.
Sonia. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to really follow up on Keith's question there. NFTs are really very powerful solution to the problem here. If I understood your last answer, then are you funding the distribution of the marketing materials or the maps themselves through NFTs? Is that the purpose of them?
Yeah. So the way, sorry to interrupt, Sonia. So the way we envisioned it initially was, you know, from the direct proceeds, we divided 3 ways. So first would be paying off first those who worked on the NFT, but also you have to sustain like the platform, which allows the dissemination, talking about like the printing probably, or if you want to like put it in a pavement, like spray paint, something, you know, that infographic, something, I mean, yeah, someone has to like pay for lunch for that, right? So that's where the funds come from the sale of the NFT. So one of the problems we encountered when we were trying to synthesize this was, okay, so how do we start it off? We have to get through that first sale first. So once you get a first sale, NFTs usually generate somewhere between like a couple of thousand to like millions of dollars, right? That's just the hype. I don't know. But yeah, once you get the first sale, we believe that the system can be very sustainable to pay for the mass production for dissemination.
Fantastic, thank you.
And I think we have time for one last question. Camille.
So your collaboration with the artist, is that just to make the product attractive to the potential client, or is it also so that this will be like a piece of public art? Would you go as far as to call this public art, or just better looking poster?
That is a fantastic question. You know, we're thinking about like intellectual property implications, you know, like this is like really a copyright, or is it really a trademark, or anything? But we would go as far as probably, well, this is my opinion. My other group mates may have different opinions, but I would call it like art. And I think we'd be short of selling the beauty of the idea if we don't call it art. When people say, it is a really good idea, like I'm learning so many things, but if you call it just information and not art, they just might not bite into the, I don't know, they just might not bite into how fantastic the idea is. They might get turned off like, oh, it's not art. This is just a flow chart. It's just a colored flow chart, right? So I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Good job.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. That was a fantastic presentation, 6 in fact. And as the audience has likely seen, it really ran the gamut and where the teams took these questions. And I'm hoping that these, like I said, at the start of this is only the beginning of it. So as we wrap up here, one thing I would like to remind everyone is these are brilliant students who have put a lot of time and effort into this. And at the start of the webinar, Kelly posted a survey form. We'd love to have your feedback for the team. Give them advice, give them your experience as well. And this is something that is, again, something that can be carried forward to increase access to justice. So at this point in time, the webinar is going to come to an end, and the judges, we're going to hop off and deliberate, and then hopefully, send some good news out to the world through email at a later point in time. So again, thank you very much for joining, and really appreciate it. This has been a fantastic experience for me. And again, thank you to the judges and teams.